Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking mainly to the women in our audience. But gentlemen, y'all need to pay attention too, because you have wives, daughters, sisters, mothers who should be paying attention to this information also. And so please join me in welcoming Linda Lingo to our program today. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Deb. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Perfect. Well, Linda is also a C-Suite Network member, and we love talking to our fellow C-Suite networkers. So let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Linda Lingo is an authority on women building wealth. Her successful 35-year career in corporate America and her 10 years as a financial advisor has given her practical experience, radical knowledge, and a deep understanding of the best ways to manage money for the modern day woman. Women work with Linda to discover how to become a master at their finances, build their wealth, and make an even bigger impact on the world. Linda's mission is to empower women with smart strategies for a successful, stress-free approach to money. Through inspiration and education, Linda guides women into clarity and confidence in their finances so they can live the life they deserve. Linda was born and raised in South Dakota and obtained her BA from Augustana University. She moved to California, where she continued her career as a CPA for 30 plus years and obtained her MBA in finance. And now she has her own business. So, Linda, so good to have you here. I'm looking forward to this chat. One of the things that I always like to ask my guests is, how did you get to where you are today? And how did you discover that this is your passion in life?
Well, as you can see by all this natural gray hair, and yes, I spike it up with a little color.
I know, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been around a while, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and so I would say I'm not going to go through all of my career, but when I was a financial advisor, I actually became a financial advisor at age 50.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened because I had such a horrible experience with my financial advisor. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of that meeting after he had told me, don't worry, sweetie, if you do what I tell you to do, you'll be just fine.
Oh, that's always special.
Yeah, a little condescending there. And I thought, you know what? I don't want another woman to have this experience. Mm-hmm. So I actually Googled what it takes to be a financial advisor, went to exams and became one, and did so for 10 years. And it was a great experience. Mm-hmm. But what I found out was women want more education before they make a financial decision or commitment. And back then, you didn't get financial advisors, for the most part, did not get paid to educate their clients. They got paid to invest their money. So I pivoted and went from being a financial advisor, investing the money, to being a financial coach, and definitely enjoy the education, the inspiring women clients, so that they are confident having those conversations with their financial advisors, or even going on and doing their own investing, whatever works for them. So that's how I got to where I'm at today, as far as being a financial coach. That, and the fact that having gone through a pretty nasty divorce after 40 years of marriage,
yikes,
realize how important it is to have your financial plan together. So really am passionate about helping women when they're going through those life transitions, whether it's a divorce or being a widow or changing careers, or even a nester. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, I finally have time to think about me. Anyway, helping them really focus on their finances and planning for the future. Planning for the future they desire, not just in the future, but how they want to live the rest of their lives.
Right. I love it. And we, excuse me, chatted before the program and talked about the fact that especially women of a certain generation, our generation, right?
Yeah.
We still really default in many ways to having our husband take care of the finances. And, and that probably comes from, our moms, right? Who they did that. And it wasn't that, certainly not that we're not knowledgeable or, anything like that. That's just kind of the way we did it. And I love the fact that, younger women are obviously taking a much more active role in planning for their financial future. But, what is it with our generation that is causing concern?
Well, that's a really good question, Deb. So Social Security just did a study, and about 60% of women over age 65 are single, widowed, or divorced.
Ooh, say that again.
Over 60% of women over age 65 are single, divorced, or widowed.
Wow.
Which means we need to have our money story together and really understand our finances, because we are going to have to rely on ourselves. And that means, if we were in that generation where, the man of the house, so to speak, took care of the finances, then it's really important for us to step up to the plate, so to speak, and really understand, even if it's just, getting involved in the family.
Where do we have our money invested?
Exactly. So just getting more involved in the finances, asking the questions, and I think that's important, not being afraid or intimidated by the conversation, but also being willing to educate ourselves. I actually recommend to my clients that they spend 5 to 10 minutes a day educating themselves on finances or money. And it's really easy to do. You can listen to podcasts like yours, or there's many of them out there. You can pick up, you can read, on your phone now, anything financial, whether it's a Wall Street Journal or Forbes or whatever it is. So it's really easy to get 5 to 10, or read a book, 5 to 10 minutes a day to educate yourself, or you can do coaching and really start to understand even just the basics of money, of budgeting, of investing. And another area that I'm finding women don't have a good handle on is their credit scores and their credit reports, which are critical.
Right. And especially because, and correct me if I'm wrong, they are tied to our spouse. And so if he has good credit, then we probably have good credit. But if his credit isn't so good, then our credit might not be good.
Absolutely. And this certainly comes into play when you're going through a divorce, because you need to know what credit cards are in your name,
right,
and which ones are in joint names, so that you can cancel those, because you could be liable for any charges after the divorce if you don't take his name off of that card or cancel it completely.
Right. Well, and credit cards are probably a really good example of that. We might split the bank account, and split a lot of other things, but like the card in your wallet doesn't typically have both names on it. So you might not even realize that your card is a joint card.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to run that credit report. And actually, we get a free credit report every year from all 3 of the credit reporting agencies here in the US. And so that's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And so I recommend to my clients that every 4 months, run one credit report. That way you've got them, coming in throughout the year, and you can make sure that, your credit is being accurately reflected. Your payments are being recorded, and that no one is opening accounts in your Social Security number. Really important nowadays.
Yeah. We see so much about ID theft that it just, it makes sense to be checking our own credit information, just to make sure that, like you said, somebody hasn't taken one. I get really annoyed at all of the free credit card offers that come in the mail. Because I don't want them. I have what I need, and that's fine. But of course, it would be very easy for somebody to just pluck one of those things out of a mailbox. It's got all your information on there, including the code that is needed to activate the card. And especially if somebody's watching, they could easily, when the card comes, take it, and then they're having a grand old time.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a really sad part. So many times that happens with family members.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we see that a lot of financial abuse with
mm-hmm.
older
mm-hmm.
women typically.
Right.
And so it's
mm-hmm.
so important to be on top of your own credit so
mm-hmm.
that you really have a good handle on that.
Right. And obviously there's total fraud, but in other cases, it could be that you have, an adult child that is either living with you or close by, and they're thinking, hey, mom's got good credit. Yeah. This will be okay. She won't care.
She won't notice.
Right. Of course, the whole thing is if somebody's thinking that, then there is a problem. If you can't say, hey, mom, then you need to be looking at that. But, it also is so strange that stuff keeps coming. I mean, like, we have been in our house now for 12 years, and we still at least once a month get something in the mail for former residents, and they're credit card things. They're all sorts of things. And I just shred them, I'm like, because there's obviously the forwarding, long ago expired. But there are times where they are credit card offers. And one was, and we got this one for a long time. It was like a Vanguard statement. And, and I'm thinking, I have everything I need right here on this piece of paper. And we had no idea, excuse me, who they were or where they were. So it's not like we could forward it or even contact them to say, excuse me, you might want to contact them.
But that brings up a really good point, Deb. And that's, we need to be proactive, women and men, in letting any former employers know our current address, because and also who the administrator is of the retirement plan, which I definitely want to talk about. But just addressing that one point, it's like, it's our responsibility as former employee to let our former employer and the 401k or the retirement plan administrator know our current address, so that we can get those annual statements, so that we can consolidate all of those 401ks that we accumulate throughout our lifetime into an IRA, so it's easier and simpler to manage when we go into retirement. So really important.
And that probably is one of the things that we do lose track of, is we've put however much into the employee savings plan, and then you leave, and I've been told, oh, you can't take it with you, it has to stay in I'm like, no. Now sometimes there are penalties and all sorts of things like that, but they can't force you to keep your money there. Am I correct in that?
Right. The only one that I suggest somebody leaves for 2 years is the simple IRA. So that does have a 2-year, as long as it's been open for 2 years, then you can roll that into or transfer it into your IRA. But other than that, any 401k, you can definitely transfer into your own individual retirement account. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And it is, kind of a pain to keep track of all of that. But of course, what you're saying to do is that you have one kind of master account, right? And so as you gather everything, it's going into that one fund.
Absolutely. I had one client who actually, they're planning for retirement, so they were around 65. And when they started looking at all of their accounts collectively, they had 10 different 401ks, IRAs, and actually and so it was a process, but we actually simplified, because that is the goal going into retirement, is you want to simplify so it's easier to manage, and so where your income is going to be coming from. So it took a little bit of time, but we got them. But here was the sad part. One of those 401k plans no longer existed.
Right. Yeah, the company went under.
And yes, and they couldn't, and yeah, so the plan was no more, and so he had lost out on those funds. So that's really, that's another reason why you want to keep it, under your
Right.
jurisdiction, and make sure you have control.
Right. And it's your money. It needs to be under your control as opposed to your employer from 35 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So very important.
And one of the other things that I discovered, and have, finally went through and cleared all of these things out is when you move, a lot of times we still have money in like a bank account or something like that. It's always entertaining to, go through, and there's several processes that you can do to check, unclaimed funds. And I think one time I got a couple $100.
Right, absolutely. And here's the reverse of that. And I think people are afraid right now after the bank failures. And 250,000 is the FDIC insured limit for any given Social Security number. Back in the day, oh my gosh, this is probably 20 years ago. I had a client, a sweet guy, but they were Depression era couple,
right?
And that was when it was 100,000, and he had $100,000 CDs in absolutely every bank within 50 miles. I mean,
yikes! Yeah, so he thought he was spreading out his risk.
Oh yeah, he was diversifying his risk, absolutely. And but he passed away before consolidating this, and the kids honestly didn't know where all of the CDs were. And it took a lot of time and effort on the trustees part to track these all down. By the time we got done, he had a couple $1 million, but it was just it was incredible. So my point is, it's now 250,000. I don't recommend that you have them in 20 different banks, but keep records so that your kids, your trustees know where all of your funds reside, and then make sure even before you pass away that you have a financial power of attorney transact those transactions. If you're trying to consolidate and simplify, that makes a huge difference.
And I've had people who have said, well, all that stuff is in my tax records. Well, yeah, to some degree, because they might be paying taxes on it. And might is a big qualifier there.
Yep. So then you'd have to have a 1099 interest statement, which some people do. Not everybody pays enough taxes to do that. And that doesn't always have the account number on it. It has your name, Social Security number, and how much interest you receive. So that's, yes, you could probably do it that way, but that's difficult. Let's make it easier and simpler while we have our wits about us. And remember where all of those accounts are.
And it is just a matter of going through and figuring it out. And then it gets confusing, especially with women, because we might have more than one last name. Now the nice thing is we pretty much only have one Social Security number. But for anybody, we also sometimes, like, I have things set up as Deb. I have, now if it's a legal thing, it is set up as Deborah. But every once in a while something slips through and it's in a different name. So, you could have a Bob and a Robert and, all of those various things. And of course, those institutions, it is not their responsibility to try and track you down to say, Linda, we have your money.
No, not to. And then if they can't find you, of course, it goes to the state, and that's cheated. And so, like you said, you can go onto any state's website and look for lost funds, and they have a form you fill out. Actually, I just did this. Oh my goodness. So I had an account from when I retired, and unfortunately that company set it up incorrectly. And so the dividends I didn't even know about this account, honestly. And so they were cheated to the state because they couldn't locate me. They didn't know, they didn't have an address for me. All they had was a name. And so it was only after talking to them, and this is 10 years later. And And I just filed the form, and we'll see, it's only a couple $100, but still it's a couple $100. So
it's dinner, right?
it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also need to update all of the information that they have, even if you don't move it. One of the big things would be beneficiary.
Oh, huge. Oh my God.
Yeah. Just because that person may have passed away or you divorce them.
Exactly.
If you do not change that paperwork, they still get that money.
Yes. And, or you have a falling out with one of your kids, or, the scenario.
Or you gain a kid.
Exactly. So it's critical to make sure your beneficiaries are up to date on any retirement plans, on any insurance, especially life insurance, because that passes outside of the trust. And then, of course, you should have a trust, and that should have the beneficiaries the way you want your funds to go. So yes, absolutely.
And I know that you don't deal with wills, but
I'm an attorney.
but it certainly is something that we need to take responsibility for and do. It's just my, for an example, it's just my husband and I. We do not have children, so we don't have heirs. So actually, people think, well, that's going to be easy. No, it got even more complicated, because it's like, well, then where does it go? And then of course you have the examples of, well, somebody has 4 kids and they don't like one of them, and you certainly don't want stuff to have to go through probate and all sorts of things like that. So take the time. Now, it was not inexpensive when we did this. Because we went through and we wanted to make sure, like we did, an endowment to the university where my husband graduated from. He wanted to endow a chair there. We did planned giving. Planned giving is very entertaining, because they count the money as they got it now. So we're now major donors, and I just think that's the funniest thing in the world. But we needed to make sure that was taken care of. Because again, if you want it to be easy for whoever is doing it afterwards, you don't want them to have to guess.
And you want it to go, like you said, to where you want it to. So I do want to make a quick differentiation. It's interesting you bring this up, because I actually had an attorney on one of my group coaching programs last week. And she did go over the difference between a will and a trust. A will, yes, you get to say who gets what, but every state has its own dollar amount.
Yes.
And with any kind of assets, it's going to end up in court. And so that means it's public. Everybody knows, what's happening and how much you have. But whereas a trust avoids probate, avoids going through the court. So that's the advantage of having a trust. Still, you get to say who gets what. And like you said, you can say, 3 out of the 4 kids get this, and I am choosing to only leave this person $1 so that you recognize them. But, or, like you said, you don't have any children. Maybe you have furry creatures that you want taken care of.
Right. We did.
Yeah. And you can do that in a trust. And then also charitable contributions it's a great way to reduce your taxes. And there's 3 or 4 different ways to do it. But also obviously mindfully and intentionally leaving money to those places that are meaningful to you, whether it's a nonprofit or whether it's university or whatever. So very important. And that's how, and I think that's really important for women to understand too. And that's part of the legacy planning, I call it. And it's not just for right now. Like you said, you've already set up your charitable contributions, you're a major donor, which is awesome. But it's also how we can make an impact in the world now as well as after. And I think that's really something that women think, I got to have a lot of money. I have to be, millionaire kind of thing.
No.
That's not true. So whether you have, 20,000, 100,000 or $1 million, you can still decide where your funds, where your assets, who gets grandma's hutch, whatever it is,
right.
So that there aren't arguments. Unfortunately, I have seen money bring out the worst in families.
It does. Money and the things, right? They fight over grandma's hutch.
Yes. And it's like, really? But yeah, as a financial advisor, I had, so many. And even though it was in a trust, they were still arguing. But when it's not in a trust, it's
It's a free for all.
It is a free for all. It is a free for all. And here's the other interesting thing to know about. I'm big into money mindset. And what I saw was kids who weren't used to having money went through it.
Right.
And the statistics are, if you're not used to having money and you inherit it, you will be as poor, or you'll be at the same financial level within 5 years.
Right. We hear that when somebody wins the lottery, right?
Exactly. Because they don't know how to handle it. It scares them. Or they're afraid that they'll do something wrong and they won't manage it right, or they won't use it the way it should be, whatever that is. But so that's another reason why I'm such a big advocate of women understanding what their relationship is to money. I mean, some of us self-sabotage. We have that glass ceiling. It's not, and we only make so much because we can't, but it's not that it's the ceiling, it's us, it's internal. It's, that's all we think we're worthy of making. And so it's really important to understand your money mindset and where you are with money, so that if you are a trustee or you are inheriting money, or that you understand what your relationship is to money.
Right. And speaking of that, one of the things that you had mentioned was that women save, but we don't always invest. So explain that.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Deb. Yeah. So I just read the statistic and it was shocking. 70% of women's money right now, this US, is in cash. Cash, you're losing purchasing power because of inflation. So even if you've got it in a savings account, even if you're getting 3 or 4% interest on it, if inflation is still at 6-7%, you're losing purchasing power. And unfortunately, women don't invest until they think they know it all. That is a misnomer. Investing does not have to be that complicated. And that's what I do a lot of, is educating women on investing. The reason we want to invest is because stocks will give us the opportunity for growth to outpace inflation. It's been proven over the last 50, 75 years that there's volatility. That means the stock market goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, but the upward trajectory is for growth. Right. And that's where investing takes place. Now, I'm not saying you should put all your money in the stock market. So
because diversification really is the important thing.
Absolutely. Diversifying and investing in appropriate investments given when you need the money. So if you need your money, say in 2 years, then a high yield savings account is a perfect place. You don't want to jeopardize the principal. But if you're saving for your retirement and you've got 20 years, then the stock market, now maybe you don't put it all in stocks, maybe you have a little bit in bonds, you got to have a little bit of diversification there. And there's different kinds of stocks, but that's where you're going to get growth. And that's what you need to outpace inflation. Right. So that's why I'm so big on educating women on investing versus savings. So, it's fear. They don't, fear of doing the wrong thing. Right. Fear of, I'm going to lose.
We don't want to look bad. And let's be honest, many financial advisors are men, and we don't always get treated well by men.
Yes. Very true. I can speak to my own, my own example, but I wanted to make a point about not investing. And it's not only saving versus investing, but here's the other thing that really catches women up. It's our career breaks. Many of us, not all, but many of us take time off to be mothers. Right. And that typically ends up being a 2-year break. And so that, even if it's just a 1-year break, let's just talk about a 1-year break for a 35-year-old woman earning $100,000 a year. This is actually going to cost her roughly $200,000. Wow. Retirement contributions and salary by the time she reaches age 67. 1 year. 1 year in a break. So that's why I say it's so important to start saving early
Mhm.
for retirement, saving as much as you can,
Mhm.
recommended at least 10 to 15%,
Right.
and get that going because
Especially get what they're going to
compound
match,
interest.
if,
Oh, yeah,
mhm.
yeah, yeah. You want to get the match. That's free
Mhm.
money. Who doesn't want free money?
Right. Mhm.
So, yeah, so absolutely getting that match, starting early, compounding value of interest, and then, yeah, just being aware of those career breaks and how
Mhm.
they can impact you.
Right.
The other thing, I was talking to a group of college girls a week or so ago, and I mentioned lifestyle creep, and they're like, "What's that?" And I was just, telling them to beware because when we get those increases, our salary increases, we tend to want to impress the Joneses, if you will. We buy
Mm.
things we don't need with money we don't have
Mhm.
to impress people we don't even care
Mhm.
for. And so I say, first of all, up your retirement savings before you
Mhm.
do anything with that salary increase, and then start,
Mhm.
putting away in your different savings accounts. Make it automatic.
Mhm.
Once it's out of that checking account or out of the
Mhm.
paycheck,
Right.
you don't
Yeah.
know.
Because if it comes out before you touch it, then you're not tempted. Oh, it'll be okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It,
So,
it it's funny. I saw a thing a couple weeks ago, last week, about Jennifer Aniston, the actress,
yeah.
who, when she got her first paycheck from Friends, now she had been doing, acting for a while, but so she decided, she was going to splurge. And so she bought a Mercedes. Okay. Sounds good. Except this Mercedes she had seen for 2 years and it had a for sale sign on it. And she thought, well, I'm going to get a good deal. Well, then she realized there was a reason nobody would buy it. I guess she, if I'm remembering the story right, it drove for by about a month and then just completely conked out. And but she wanted to splurge on herself. She wanted to impress other people, and she didn't do the research that she should have, even if it was just something, as simple as taking it to a mechanic. But yeah, we do that. We're like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. We're gonna go out to dinner once a week now. Whatever it is, just make sure that the way you're spending the money is a good way to be doing it.
Exactly. And I always say it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm working with women, we also talk a lot about spending and saving with intention.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't like the word budget. To me, it gives me the creeps. It just makes my skin crawl.
Budget is just an ick word, right?
It's a four-letter word,
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in control, then you get to decide,
Mm-hmm.
with intention. And that means knowing your values
Mm-hmm.
and setting goals in alignment with
Mm-hmm.
those values. Because when you understand why you're saving that 3 to 6 month, solution savings account, I
Mm-hmm.
call it, or why you're saving for retirement, then you're more committed.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, our society is so immediate gratification.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I could get on my soapbox on that topic alone, but and it is, and our brains are wired.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have immediate gratification instead, delayed gratification. Oh my God, I'm not going to retire for 40 years. No,
Right. Why can't I spend the money now? Mm-hmm.
exactly.
I'll save some other day.
Exactly. And then when I show them what compounding interest
Mm-hmm.
does, the
Right.
difference it makes,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, this is why you want to
Mm-hmm.
start, even if it's $100 a month,
Mm-hmm.
get started and make it
Mm-hmm.
automatic, like I said before. So it's so important. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're saving and spending with intention,
Mm-hmm.
then you're in control.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in control, yes, you can budget for a meal out, or I budget
Mm-hmm.
for flowers. I love beauty. Beauty
Aw.
is important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of my budget is
Mm-hmm.
flowers,
Mm-hmm.
but that means I don't do other things,
Right.
So it's a
Mm-hmm.
trade-off, and you have to decide what's important for
Mm-hmm.
you. And that's how you make the money work, so
Mm-hmm.
to speak. So yeah, really important
Right.
to know
Mm-hmm.
what your values are and what's
Mm-hmm.
important to you.
Right.
So
And of course, it's very important just to know where you're spending money. I mean, that's where the budget part comes in.
true.
How many of us, and I think probably anybody is going to raise their hand. I definitely would raise mine. I am paying like a monthly fee for things I do not use.
Oh, those
You know, and
Yep.
you know, and I had one just, you know, I got the thing the other day. It said your account is no longer active because your credit card expired.
Yeah.
And I went, yay, because I couldn't figure out how to get into it to cancel it.
Oh, no.
Now it was like $4 a month. I mean, you know, not even a cup of coffee type of thing. But you add that up over the years of not using it at all. And you know, yeah, that was a nice dinner again. But how many of those things do we have, especially regarding entertainment? You know,
Yeah.
you sign up for ESPN and then you sign up for this and then you sign up for that and you want Hulu and you want Netflix. And you know, when you're doing it onesie twosies and it's $4.99, $8.99, whatever a month, you don't really stop and think about it. But when you look at it, go, holy cow, I spend $350 a month on 900 television channels I don't watch. You know, that's where you really need to be paying attention.
And it goes beyond that, but that's a great example. So I had a client, I had to make a spreadsheet and go through her credit cards and write down. I made her write it. So because write it,
it sinks into your brain.
Yes, exactly. Write down everything, all of her subscriptions, and they weren't just entertainment. They were also food. Like she had subscriptions for different food deliveries, and I don't do that, so the name's escaping me right now. But I mean, these aren't cheap. You know, it can be $50, $60, $75 a month. And it was like, and when she started writing it all down, you know, I challenged her. I said, okay, pick entertainment, pick the two platforms that you go to. What are your two go-to?
Right.
What, you know, can you let the rest of those go? Well, that was pretty significant. I think it was over, you know, 50.
Well, and a lot of times they overlap. I mean, so you're paying for it multiple times.
Yep. So yeah, it's just challenging clients to take a look at things with fresh eyes in a new way. And and just being really intentional. But you're right, subscriptions, especially after COVID, because we were, you know, don't want to say locked down, but you know,
stuck at home.
Yeah, stuck at home. And so and like you said, it's automatic. You know, they know what they're doing.
Right.
It's automatic. So you know, until your credit card expires,
you go, yay, when you get the email, right?
You don't really think about it. So very good point. Absolutely. Another thing I wanted to mention before we run out of time, and this has to do with with our retirement. There's two things the IRS gives us. They don't give us much, but they do give us two things: Roth IRAs and HSAs, health savings accounts. People have probably heard about Roth IRAs, after tax contributions, a lot more flexible as to you don't have to take distributions in retirement. And it's really the best thing to leave to your heirs. Health savings accounts, I don't think get talked about enough. And to me, they're every bit as good as a Roth IRA. The thing is, you do have to have a high deductible health insurance plan, which your employer can tell you if it is, or if you're self-employed, which a lot of people are self-employed and have those high deductible, 5,000 or more deductible plans. Anyway, your contributions to a health savings account are pre-tax. You can let it grow, so you do not have to use it in the year you make the contribution. And when you use it for health care down the road and withdraw money from it, it's also tax-free. So it's tax-free going in, it grows tax-free. And when you take it out for medical, it's tax-free. My clients in retirement, like, this is the best thing ever, because one of the big misconceptions is, Medicare will pay for that. Well, let me tell you, Medicare does not pay for a lot,
especially things like prescriptions and, you know,
or dental. They don't cover dental. There's a lot of things that Medicare doesn't cover. So your health savings account, you can be contributing to that now, not using it for current expenses because you're gainfully employed. So you can probably pay for it out of your income, let it grow, and then use that, because the statistic is in retirement, 65 and over, your average healthcare expenses could be $250,000. That's average. So if you have an HSA that you can be pulling from, what a godsend. You know, that's just amazing. And that's another reason why it's so important. And I really advocate for women to start saving for the retirement as early as possible, because we live on average 5 years longer than men, because health savings accounts could help us, but our health expenses are going to average
Mhm.
$250,000
Mhm.
because we don't want to end up sleeping on our kid's sofa.
Right.
We want to have a retirement life that is
Mhm.
ours, that the way we want to do
Mhm.
it. So I am huge on women
Mhm.
saving for retirement.
Right. And the thing with the health savings, in about mid-November, we start hearing the commercials, right? Spend it now or you're going to lose it. It depends on what you have. And it's not that, because it's usually dental and vision, right? Are the two that they're saying spend it now or you're going to lose it. Now, yes, with some plans you do,
Yeah.
but not always. So don't go out there and go flying down to the eye doctor just because you think I'm going to lose that money.
Right. So there's FSA, which is
Mhm.
flexible savings
Right.
account that you do need to spend
Mhm.
in the year. I think they give you a couple months, into the next year
Mhm.
to spend. So it's FSA. And
Mhm.
then there's HSA, which is
Mhm.
a health savings account. They couldn't have made it more confusing. Health
Right.
savings account, you don't lose.
Mhm.
It's like a savings account.
Right. It's
It
just,
is a savings
yeah, it
account
just keeps
for,
rolling over.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So there are two different ones. You have to
Mhm.
be aware of what you're contributing to. And I
Mhm.
always advocate for the HSAs.
Right. Right. Yeah, because like you said, it builds as opposed to whoops, you got to start over every year.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
if you can, at least use one. That's
Well,
the
yeah,
thing. Mhm. Yeah.
true,
Yeah.
true. And
Well,
make it automatic. It comes automatically out of your
mhm.
paycheck,
Right.
pre-tax.
Mhm.
So yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's a great thing.
Mhm. I love it. And my card actually says health savings account. So I know which one it is.
Nice,
Um,
nice. So that's really important.
mhm.
Um, I wanted to share another statistic, and this was a personal insider report that was
Mhm.
just published. It showed that the 2022, so it's very current, the average 401k balance for women, now this is all women, so all ages, so it's the average,
Mhm.
was $107,000. The men's
Mhm.
average is 156,000.
Hmm.
At age 65, that 401k balance was 255,000.
Hmm.
So women need to increase their 401k contributions
Mhm.
while they're working
Mhm.
so that they have that 401k to draw on in
Mhm.
retirement. So I'm so big on that. I just
Right.
want to reinforce it. I
Mhm.
guess
Mhm.
the last thing is I wanted to make sure that any self-employed people, solopreneurs, know that there are retirement plans for them.
Right.
There's
Because you just
solo,
assume, no, I don't have, I'm not big enough to have a 401k.
right. And that's not true. There's actually a solo 401k. So
Mhm.
that's for the solopreneur.
Mhm.
There's a SEP IRA,
Mhm.
and you can have employees, but typically it tends to be, spouses or partners, maybe one employee, but it's
Mhm.
typically very small. And then the simple IRA, and that's for any employer that has less than 100 employees. I usually see it with 5 to 20
Mhm.
employees. It's very typical for a simple IRA.
Mhm.
They all have different IRS guidelines, but I have to tell you, the solo 401k, extremely flexible. Both you get to wear two hats, and that one you put on your employer hat
Mhm.
and make contributions, and then you put on your employee hat and you also make
So
contributions.
you've got a double.
You do.
Mhm.
So for 2023, you can actually contribute up to $66,000.
Wow.
And if you're 50 or older, you get to add another $7,500. So it's pretty
Nice.
sizable.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. And same for the SEP IRA. You
Mhm.
can do 66,000.
Mhm.
And then if you're 50 or older, you have that catch up
Mhm.
of 7,500. Simple IRA is not quite so much. The employee makes the contributions and you can contribute up to 15,500.
Mhm.
And then the employer typically has a standard percentage for everybody. It's
Mhm.
usually up to 3%.
Mhm.
So just wanted to I know it's a lot of numbers, but wanted to throw that out there. So you
Mhm.
solopreneurs know you have options
Right.
other than an individual retirement account to save for retirement.
Mhm. Right. Which that brings me to the fact that this does sound very confusing, and it is kind of confusing. I mean, right? So it is very important because, as you mentioned at the start, read 5-10 minutes a day, do all it, but we're not going to know enough, on we might know enough to be dangerous, or more importantly, we know enough to know when we need to ask questions.
Right. Absolutely. So, that's where, a financial coach comes into play. And I have a group coaching program. Actually, I'm just launching it the 1st of May. I'm finishing up my 1 year. The women loved it because we covered everything having to do with money. There was no topic that was off limit. We covered everything from money mindset to intentional money spending to investing and legacy planning. But anyway, that's a great way because women love community. And so it's really nice when you realize you're not the only one that has that question.
Right. And I might think I'm stupid, but look, everybody else is too. So then it's okay.
There's no stupid question. Yeah. And there's no judgment. That's what I love. We're all here together. We're going to learn, and then they can implement it, so it's coaching too. So that's awesome. So they can always learn more about that on my website. And then obviously, podcasts are a great place as well. And then, reading blogs. I have a ton of information on my blog page. There's a lot of bloggers out there that offer information, but here's the deal. You do have to do a little research because not everything that's out there is accurate.
Right.
So that's where it really helps to have, a coach to bounce those ideas off and just to see if you're on track. And the other thing is when I'm working with divorcees and widows, especially widows, I tell them don't make big financial decisions the first year.
Right.
And your sister and your brother and your in-laws are all going to try, whether you're divorcing or whether they're all going to try and give you advice. And for the most part, it's well-intentioned.
Right.
But it may not be the best thing for you. So I say, take it under advisement, but don't make any big financial moves that at least the first 6 months, for sure, because you're grieving, whether you're going through a divorce, whether you're going through the loss of a loved one, there's a grieving process. And that's probably not the best frame of mind to be making those financial decisions that could impact a long time down the road.
Yeah. One of the big ones is you always, they're like, well, you have to sell the house. You have to sell the house. It's so big, you have to sell the house. Well, maybe not. It was interesting when my father passed away. There was a large age difference between my parents, and and we knew my father was going to pass. I mean, this was not a surprise, and in a total reverse, my mother did all of their financial management. And that was just, what worked for them. And so that was fine. But, she had never liked living in the mountains of Colorado. 50 years she was up there and she did not like it. But of course she had heard the don't do anything for a year rule. And I finally told her, and, I said, Mom, this is not a spur of the moment decision. You've never liked it here. So I think it's okay to go ahead and start those, and of course it still took about a year to get everything, but yeah, I mean, you have to look at what your situations are. Sometimes, you might have to sell that house. You might have to, you might not need all those cars, all those various things, but just kind of, take a beat and see, because you also may have a bunch of expenses that you're going to have to get through there. There's, very well may have been a lot of medical things, all of those things. So, do what you need to on those.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Every situation is unique. And it's just, take time to think it through, because I think too many times women get pressured into making decisions that and
again, most people mean well, especially, in the with the death of a spouse, the kids want to make sure mom is taken care of. And so they're going to say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, it's okay, mom, to say, chill.
Well, not only that, but here's another interesting. It's interesting. Your mom didn't care for where she was living for 50
Mhm.
years. Upon the death of a spouse,
Mhm.
75% of women changed financial advisors
Hmm.
because they never felt like they had a relationship.
It was his
It was
financial
his.
manager.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it's interesting that your mom took care of the
Mhm.
finances. I'm guessing she stayed with her financial advisor, but 75%, that's a
Mhm.
high statistic.
That is. That
So my
means that
point,
there's a lot of decisions that are being made that you don't feel like you're part of.
exactly, exactly. And what a shame,
Mhm.
who wants to stay in that
Mhm.
relationship? Number one. Number two, it also means educating yourself so that you can enter into the
Mhm.
conversation. And if this financial advisor isn't serving you, there's a lot more out there.
Right. Mhm.
Start
Mhm.
investigating
Mhm.
and interviewing
Mhm.
more so that you can
Mhm.
find somebody who really relates, who
Right.
you can relate to.
Mhm. Yeah. And like you said, it's different for everybody. There are some, that are more risk adverse.
Mhm.
There are some that are, a little bit okay, even, in their more advanced years. Most of the time we do get more risk adverse the closer we get to retirement age, right? I remember when I was young, I invested in really risky stock.
Yeah.
Now, back then, that was tech. I had, right, and got married, and my husband went, no, no, not really what we, and that was okay because I understood, and we talked about it, and and moved some stuff around, but and as you said, okay, what is your health situation? Do that you're going to have, and maybe you want to start traveling, all sorts of things like that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then keep in mind, okay, what are my needs if I have to go into a care facility? How much is that going to be?
Right.
All sorts of things like that.
Absolutely. And that's why I always say, I usually finish my shows with this. I'm not finishing yet, but it's,
Mhm.
don't let your past define your future.
Mhm.
Live the life you desire.
Right.
And so when I'm retirement planning with my gals, we actually go through a dreaming exercise.
Mhm.
And it's when do you want to retire? When is
Mhm.
the big, question? Where do you want to live? How do you
Mhm.
want to live? Who are
Mhm.
you going to be with? Because so many times we get caught up in the roles that
Mhm.
we play, mother,
Right.
wife, for me, it was CPA or
Mhm.
financial advisor, that you don't really have time to stop and think about who you are and
Mhm.
what you really
Right.
want and desire. And
Mhm.
so it's taking time to do that and then plan for it accordingly.
Mhm.
Okay, what does that look like?
Right.
Traveling. A lot of my
Mhm.
clients travel in their
Mhm.
60s, 70s pretty significantly.
Mhm.
In 80s, you're probably physically maybe starting to slow
Right.
down, probably
Mhm.
by 90. Yeah. But I had a client, I'll never forget this. He was the most interesting guy. He was 95, sharp
Mhm.
as a tack, loved his stocks. Every month he came in and he'd go over his list of stocks and then he'd research three
Mhm.
more. And so we talk about those
Mhm.
three. And it was so fun. So even at 95, you can be,
Mhm.
investing in stocks. It
Right.
doesn't mean you can't, but it doesn't mean
Mhm.
you should be either.
Mhm. Yeah,
Individual.
because that's more of a long-term investment type of thing.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
was he was a kick. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed him.
Right.
But all that to say is, know you
Mhm.
and know what you want
Mhm.
and what you desire and what
Right.
does that look like. And sometimes, it takes a little bit of time to
Mhm.
figure that out. And that's okay. That's
Mhm.
okay. But
Right.
then let's put a plan
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
You're here, you want to be there. All right, let's
Mhm.
figure out how to get you
Mhm.
there.
Right.
So,
Well, and have those discussions so that
mm,
people know what's going on. Um, my mom, so it's her and I. I'm an only child, and and so she and I've had this talk before, and she takes us on vacations, pretty extravagant vacations, and and as she puts it, she's spending my inheritance. I
love it.
love that. And I even say you can take somebody else. Doesn't have to be us. That's great that it is us, but and I told her, I said, Mom, I am not expecting to get anything. I would like the last check to pay off your final expenses.
Nice.
My goal, so don't be think, but how many times do we see that where the kids are expecting that
Oh,
they're going to get something, and so, yeah, I mean, have those conversations. Again, it's your money, ladies. it's or even gentlemen. I mean, it's Shaquille O'Neal, right, who was saying, his kids are, now they're not going to be homeless, he said, but his millions are not going to them, because they did not earn it. I love that idea. His kids aren't real thrilled with the concept, but the nice thing is, he's got years before he passes, probably, so they can prepare themselves and be financially secure themselves. Because then they're not expecting that they're going to get dad's millions.
Well, they've had the conversation, and that's so important. And it's something that we should be talking to, our parents, but also our kids.
Right.
And it's that healthcare part of attorney, making sure you have that in place. And it's letting them know your final wishes, whatever that looks like. But also, do you want to, so many of my clients, I want to stay in my house. I don't want to have to go into assisted living. That's not for me. Well, it's knowing what you want, but then also how are you going to pay for it?
Right.
So whether that means, you have a house that's fully paid for, no mortgage, and you can do a reverse mortgage, or whether it means having long-term care insurance. There's different ways to plan for that, but it's planning for that, but then having the conversation so the family understands the situation. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, Linda, this has been so much fun. But more importantly, I think it's very beneficial. And, like I said at the start, gentlemen, this is important stuff for the women in your lives. So make sure that you are leading them toward this. But tell us, Linda, for the people who went, okay, I know I have to do this, but now I'm lost. I don't know what to do. How do they contact you, and what are the services that you provide?
Oh, thanks for asking. So as a financial coach, I help my clients figure out where they are, where they want to be. And like I said, I take them through exercises and put a plan in place to arrive at that. And for some, it might be getting out of debt. For others, it might be learning more about investing. And for others, it might be legacy planning. But lindalingo.com, www.lindalingo.com is my website. And you can contact me there. I have free resources you can pick up. And you can also read my blogs. They're all free, so take a look at it. I've got a YouTube channel, so if you're more of a listener than a reader, lindalingo.com. Look for me on YouTube and LinkedIn and on Instagram. So I have my daughter to thank for this. I am Money Mama Mentor.
And we're connected there.
Yes. So any of those. And like I said, the group coaching is coming up. If you're interested, book a free call and we'll talk more about that. It's a great opportunity to get educated, to meet other like-minded women, to have that community, and then be able to put it into play for yourself.
Right. I love it. And again, it's lindalingo.com. Very easy. Don't even have to spell it, because it's just exactly like you would think it is. So you'll be sure, folks, to check it out, because it does have so much great information and great resources. Whether you're 20, whether you're 80, be looking at this and be thinking about it, because it is something that it's never too early. And let's be honest, it's never too late. You can start thinking about these things. So Linda, this has been fabulous. And I, hope that we can chat again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Well, like I said, don't let your past define your future. Live the life you desire. And in order to do that, you need to own your money, know your life.
I love it. Perfect. I'm Deb Creer. I've been having an absolutely delightful conversation with Linda Lingo. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.